Welcome to episode 11 of Project 250, a weekly chronicle of the people, places, and events of the American Revolution in the order they occurred. So, without further ado, here's what was happening 250 years ago this week, March 12th to 18th, 1775. Last week, in Boston, citizens gathered at the Old South Meeting House for the annual Boston Massacre oration, with this year's oration delivered by noted physician Joseph Warren, who spoke while clad in a white toga, the traditional garment of a freeborn Roman citizen. Also on March 6, 1775, a free black man named Prince Hall became the first African-American initiated as a Freemason in North America when he was initiated into Lodge No. 441 of the Grand Lodge of Ireland. The towns of Topsfield and Wilmington, Massachusetts, voted to form volunteer Minutemen companies, offering recruitment bonuses to those who enlisted. At the end of the week, in Elizabethtown, New Jersey, the Committee of Observation sent a letter to New York County's Committee of Observation warning of a suspected breach of the Continental Association involving two Elizabethtown residents, Ichabod B. Barnett and Samuel Lee, who were suspected of traveling to New York to recover goods from a British ship named Beulah, located at Sandy Hook. As this week begins, our attention turns to an incident that took place in the community of Westminster, in present-day Vermont, in which two men, William French and Daniel Houghton, were shot and killed during an altercation at the local Westminster courthouse. The incident in Westminster was sparked by actions of New York officials, derisively referred to as Yorkers, who attempted to evict New Hampshire settlers. In response, an Antioch militia, led by Ethan Allen and Remember Baker, known as the Green Mountain Boys, retaliated by destroying the homes of Yorkers. This, in turn, prompted retaliation from New York officials, who began arresting and evicting settlers from New Hampshire. These high-handed measures by New York officials helped solidify the heretofore somewhat lukewarm support for the Green Mountain Boys. So it was that on March 13, 1775, a mob of around 90 individuals gathered outside the Westminster courthouse to protest the arrival of a judge and numerous settlers from New York. Their intention was to prevent the county court from convening the following day. The number of protesters quickly grew to several hundred, many of them armed with sticks, clubs, and firearms. Sheriff William Patterson ordered the protesters to disperse from the courthouse. When the protesters refused to leave, Patterson rode to the nearby Yorker stronghold of Brattleboro, located 20 miles south, to recruit a posse. At about 9 o'clock that night, Patterson returned to Westminster, this time with about 60 to 70 armed men. He again ordered the protesters to disperse, and again they refused. In response, the sheriff ordered his men to fire into the courthouse. The rioters returned fire, slightly wounding a magistrate. Patterson's men then stormed the courthouse, broke down the courthouse door, and began firing into the crowd, killing 22-year-old William French. From this point, accounts differ, but apparently, after a brief scuffle, the protesters attempted to flee from the courthouse while Sheriff Patterson's men continued to shoot at them. During the ensuing chaos, Daniel Houghton was shot and brutally beaten. Houghton would succumb to his wounds 9 days later. At this time, Sheriff Patterson and his men captured 7 of the protesters, herded them into the county jail, and left them there to die. According to one eyewitness, the New Yorkers dragged the dying William French into the jail, quote, as one would a dog. They then amused themselves by cruelly mocking the dying man as he lay gasping for breath. The following day, a rescue party of about 500 men, including Massachusetts and New Hampshire militia, arrived in Westminster. They surrounded the courthouse and arrested the judges, sheriffs, and other Yorkers, who were taken to the town jail. The rescuers then freed all the prisoners from the day before, including the 7 rioters, and locked up the captured Yorkers in their place. After securing the courthouse, the rescuers searched the surrounding countryside for other Yorkers, capturing several, and transporting them to the jail in Northampton, Massachusetts. The party then descended on Brattleboro, where they forcibly entered the homes of prominent Yorkers who were also imprisoned in Northampton. Finally, roadblocks were set up around Westminster to detain suspected Loyalists and Yorker officials at gunpoint. These detainees were later handed over to search parties, who took them to Northampton. 5 of these prisoners were eventually charged with the murder of William French. This episode, known as the Westminster Massacre, was part of a decades-long dispute between New York and New Hampshire over jurisdiction in the region known as the New Hampshire Grants, or the Benning-Wentworth Grants. Specifically, the conflict focused on whether New York, New Hampshire, or the residents themselves should have control over the region. This dispute would not be fully resolved until well after the war, when the region was admitted as the state of Vermont in 1791. In a follow-up to last week's story from Elizabethtown, New Jersey, concerning accusations against Ichabod Barnett and Samuel Lee of traveling to New York to recover goods from the ship Beulah. On March 15, the New York County Committee of Observation, having conducted its own investigation of the episode, reported that goods had indeed been taken from the Beulah at Sandy Hook and transported to Elizabethtown. In the end, both Barnett and Lee were cleared of any wrongdoing, John Murray having sworn in a deposition before the committee that Barnett and Lee, and the Beulah's skipper, Captain Bussell, had acted by the order and direction of Murray and his partner. Also, on March 15, coinciding with the publication date of Joseph Warren's Massacre Day oration, in Boston, several British officers and Loyalists staged their own version of Warren's oration at the British Coffee House, a possible reference to the Crown Coffee House located on King Street near the Long Wharf. They conducted a mock town meeting, selecting a moderator and 7 selectmen. These dignitaries then took to the coffee house balcony with Loyalist physician Thomas Bolton, from Salem serving as their orator. In sharp contrast to Warren's white toga, Bolton wore a black gown with a rusty gray wig and foxtail hanging to it. Bolton's speech, which may have been written by notorious turncoat Benjamin Church, has been described by one historian as a masterwork of character assassination. In it, Bolton mocked local Whig leaders for their insolence, arrogance, vicious nature, and treasonous actions. As one might expect, Joseph Warren was a particular target of scorn. Bolton implicitly accused Warren of having poisoned his fellow son of liberty, William Molyneux. Furthermore, Bolton derided Warren as such a boring speaker that most of his listeners fell asleep before he even completed the massacre oration. John Hancock faced some of the harshest criticism. Bolton characterized Hancock as being ignorant and actually accused him of trying to make himself a monarch. Furthermore, Hancock was a notorious womanizer whose paramours even included a lowly cook. Local merchant John Rowe, indignant over his portrayal in the speech, perhaps best expressed the Whig reaction in his diary when he wrote,
"This day an oration was delivered by a dirty scoundrel, wherein many characters were unfairly represented and much abused, and mine among the rest."
And that's the way it was 250 years ago this week. If you enjoyed this video, please tell a friend. And if you like what you see on this channel, make sure to like, share and subscribe. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter, or X. Thank you for watching.